For those of you who are believers, we knew these days would be coming. The days when goodness and light would be condemned and darkness celebrated. The serpents among us. That's the examination we provide in tonight's preamble. In the Gospel according to Matthew chapter 7, verses 15 and 16, we read, "Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravenous wolves. You will know them by their fruits." In Isaiah chapter 5, verse 20, we read this, "Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness." The wolves who call evil good are the Democrat socialists who rule Washington, D.C. with their iron fists. In less than 2 months, these people have unleashed pain and suffering on Americans and foreign nationals alike. Americans are forced to pay for rampant and uncontrolled illegal immigration. We are forced to endure a national security crisis, a public health crisis, and a humanitarian crisis on our southern border. Our political enemies call this good government. In one location, 4,700 illegal aliens are crammed into a facility designed to hold only 250 people. And liberals say this is how they show they care. In Texas, law enforcement rescued a 6-month-old baby who a ruthless human trafficker threw into the Rio Grande River after attacking the baby's mother. Socialists call this a challenge. And in New Mexico, cold and heartless coyotes drop a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old over a 14-foot fence and then run, leaving them alone in the desert. And Joe Biden and his leftists call this compassion. Biden's spokesmouth was asked what the administration was doing to stop this. See if you all hear an answer.
There is video of a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old being thrown over the wall in New Mexico.
Beefing up border security.
There's video now of a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old.
I've seen the video, and I think any of us who saw the video were incredibly alarmed by the steps of smugglers, ones that we have been quite familiar with, that we've spoken out about our concerns about. As Secretary Mayorkas said, the inhumane way smugglers abuse children while profiting off parents' desperation is criminal and morally reprehensible. The President certainly agrees with that. And these kids, I believe, were rescued by individuals who are working at the border.
Yes. America knows that your policies have led to this barbaric disgrace. But the question was, what are you doing to stop it?
And are you concerned more about the kids' safety, or are you concerned about kids getting in? Or tell me more about your concern here.
Kids' safety is, as you just mentioned, the main concern.
Well, of course it is, which is why I'm often surprised by some of the line of questioning here. But I will say that our concern and our focus is on sending a clear message to the region that this is not the time to come. You should not send your kids on this treacherous journey, that these smugglers are preying on vulnerabilities in these communities. There's a lot of issues and steps we need to take to address root causes.
So, nothing. Biden and his socialists will do nothing but send a message 2 months after the surge began. Don't come. You all got that? Evil calling itself good. Here's one of the more infamous godless leftists in Washington, D.C., Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, trying to blame Americans for the misery being caused all over the globe by people who think just like her.
We should be owning the fact that U.S. foreign policy has contributed to the destabilization of these regions and of the very countries that are now mired in a lot of violence that these families and these children are fleeing.
That is simply a lie. The reason these families are fleeing is because left-wing collectivism has gripped many of these nations. With a socialist takeover of any country comes destabilization, corruption, and violence. We've seen it right here in the United States, where violence in Democrat socialist cities has become the norm, where the socialists get to violate law with impunity, like Joe Biden's son, for example. Aside from the laptop, he's suspected of giving false information on an ATF background check form. For normal people, the punishment for false answers on that form includes fines up to $250,000 and or 10 years in jail. But for well-connected and corrupt Democrat socialists, well, nothing. AOC blames the United States, a force for good, while she holds her evil ideology blameless. AOC has a suggestion for those who come to the United States illegally and abuse our asylum system. She has a prescription for punishment for we Americans who insist that Americans don't jail children with their law-breaking parents.
And we cannot dust that under the rug. And by the way, those families are owed reparations, period.
Reparations, she says, to reward those who broke and abused our laws and to punish those who are trying to do the right thing. What about the effort in some parts of our nation to ensure that the American standard of one eligible citizen to one vote is lived up to? Here is the Biden administration calling good evil.
My question is the tone going to change out of the White House? Or
The tone for a bill that limits voting access and makes it more difficult for people to engage in voting in Georgia?
No, that's actually not what the governor of Georgia has said.
Well, I think that is not based in fact what the governor of Georgia has said. So no, our tone is not changing.
We are not big fans of the alleged Republican governor of Georgia, but on this Good Friday, we can assure you, everybody out there, that Jen Psaki just lied about Governor Kemp. It's not us saying so. It's the left-leaning Washington Post. The Post fact-checkers slapped Joe Biden's talking points about the Georgia law with 4 Pinocchios, its worst rating. Biden, whose White House has called the legislation Jim Crow in the 21st century, has repeatedly insinuated that the law limits voting opportunities. But the law makes no change to Georgia's Election Day voting hours, which run from 7 o'clock in the morning until 7 o'clock in the evening. Experts told the Post that the net effect was to expand the opportunities to vote for most Georgians, not limit them. MIT election expert Charles Stewart III found that Georgia's new law actually expanded voting hours, especially in rural counties. As for early voting, the law specifically mentions that voting sites are required to open beginning at 9 o'clock in the morning and ending at 5 o'clock in the evening. Biden's characterization was off base, as the Post noted, quote, any listeners might assume he was talking about voting on Election Day, not early voting. People who have a belief in God are threats to socialists. One reason that we're a threat is that we conduct our lives knowing that God is always with us, always watching. We have a prompting of the conscience. Liberals who are mired in the trappings of this world have no conscience. That's why they lie with such ease, why they're perfectly comfortable trying to turn the ideals of right and wrong upside down. As Jesus Christ was dying on the cross, he looked up to heaven and said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. That may have been true for the brutal Roman soldiers and the Pharisees. But today's socialists, they have no excuse. They know exactly what they're doing. All we can do is pray that God will soften their hardened hearts, turn them back to the light.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.